Prologue. On my wedding day, while I was standing inside a beautiful estate surrounded by the people I loved, a drunk man tried to force his way through the gates. He demanded to see me. He said the wedding had to stop. Security dragged him away before he could reach the house, and I did not even know it was happening until later. The man was Nathan, the man I had once believed I would marry. For years, I had imagined building a family with him. I had trusted him with my heart, my future, and the friendship that had followed me since childhood. Then I came home early from a trip and found Nathan in bed with Rory, my oldest friend. The worst part was not only that they had betrayed me. It was the way Rory smiled when I caught them, as if destroying my life meant she had finally won something. And it was the excuse Nathan gave me afterward, an excuse so cruel that it killed the last part of me that still wanted to forgive him. This is the story of how I lost the man I loved and the friend I had trusted since childhood. It is also the story of why, when Nathan came to stop my wedding, I no longer felt anything for him at all. Chapter 1. Nathan and I had known each other since we were children, although back then we were not close. His family lived near the house of my childhood friend, Aurora. Everyone called her Rory. Rory's father worked for Nathan's father at an auto repair shop, so their families had always been connected. Rory and I were in the same class at school, and from the time we were little, people thought of us as a pair. We were completely different. Rory loved trouble, speed, and cars. She wore faded jeans, heavy boots, and oversized t-shirts. She was fearless in a way that sometimes made me feel dull beside her. She could talk to boys without becoming self-conscious. She never seemed worried about what anyone thought of her. I was the opposite. I was the kind of girl who felt miserable if I found a hole in a favorite dress or a stain on a new pair of shoes. I loved fabrics, clean lines, pretty details, and clothes that made a woman feel special. Even as a child, I noticed how people changed when they wore something beautiful. Nathan was 4 years older than us. 4 years is not much when you are an adult, but when you are a child, it feels like an entire generation. He was simply an older boy who lived nearby, someone whose name I knew but whose life had nothing to do with mine. That changed years later, after I came home from college. I had studied fashion design in New York. After graduating, I found a position with a prestigious international design company. My role was small, but it was a real beginning. I had worked hard for it, and I believed I was finally stepping into the life I had always wanted. Then my father became ill. My mother was struggling to manage everything alone, and I could not stay in New York knowing they needed me, leaving hurt. I had spent years preparing for that career, and walking away from it felt like tearing up a future I had only just begun to touch. Still, my parents mattered more. So I returned home. There were not many opportunities for a fashion designer in our town. For a while, I felt as if I had come back with all that education and nowhere to use it. Eventually, I decided to open a bridal boutique. It turned out to be the right choice. The business began to grow. Brides came to me looking for dresses that would make them feel beautiful on one of the most important days of their lives. I loved watching their faces change when they found the right gown. For a few minutes, the fear, the family arguments, the stress, and the endless decisions disappeared. They would look into the mirror and see the future they wanted. At the time, I still believed love worked that way too. You chose the right person, committed to him, and built something beautiful together. I lived with my parents, helped my mother at home, took care of my father when he needed me, and devoted the rest of my time to the boutique. After I returned home, Rory and I began spending time together again. We had known each other since childhood, and neither of us had many other friends. When we wanted to go somewhere instead of sitting at home alone, we called each other. Our friendship felt familiar and automatic. Or at least, I believed we were close. I never questioned it. Rory was part of my childhood, and I assumed she would be part of my future. When Nathan opened his own auto repair shop, Rory went to work for him as a secretary. The job suited her perfectly. She understood cars, knew how to deal with customers, and could handle even the rudest people without becoming intimidated. She belonged in that world of engines, tools, oil, and loud voices. I began stopping by the repair shop to visit Rory. At first, Nathan was simply her boss and the older neighborhood boy I remembered. But the more often I came in, the more Nathan and I talked. He began courting me, and for the first time I started seeing him as a man rather than someone from the neighborhood. Chapter 2. Nathan was no longer the older neighborhood boy I remembered. He had become a confident man with his own business, his own responsibilities, and a directness that made it impossible to misunderstand when he was interested in someone. Nathan began openly pursuing me whenever I visited the shop. Before I let myself respond, I went to Rory. She worked beside him every day and had known him for years, so I asked her more than once whether she had feelings for him. Every time Rory said no, she acted almost offended by the question. Nathan was only her boss, she insisted. She knew him too well to see him that way. I believed her. I would never have dated Nathan if I had thought my friend wanted him. Only after Rory repeatedly assured me that there was nothing between them did I allow Nathan to court me seriously. When he asked me out, I said yes. Our relationship grew naturally. He was attentive and persistent, and being with him felt strangely easy because our lives were already connected. He knew my family. I knew where he came from. There was no mystery about his past, or so I thought. When Nathan and I officially began dating, I told Rory immediately. She smiled, congratulated both of us, and acted genuinely happy for me. After that, the three of us continued spending time together at restaurants, cafes, and the bowling alley, almost as we had before, except Nathan was now my boyfriend. I never treated Rory like an unwanted third person. She was my friend. She had known Nathan for years. Her presence felt safe. That belief embarrasses me now, but at the time, I was completely sincere. When the three of us laughed together, I did not search their faces for secrets. When Rory spent her days working beside Nathan, I did not feel threatened. When she understood his business in ways I did not, I was glad he had someone reliable at the shop. I trusted them both so deeply that suspicion never had a place to grow. Nathan and I began talking about the future. These were not vague conversations that happened once and were forgotten. We discussed the kind of life we wanted. We talked about family and children. Nathan said he wanted 2 sons, hoping at least one of them would continue the business that had begun with his father. He also said he wanted a daughter. He would smile and say he wanted a little princess like me. He said he would spoil her and that our sons would help him protect her. I listened to him and believed every word. Sometimes, when I worked with a bride at the boutique, I imagined the day I would choose my own wedding dress. I wondered what Nathan's face would look like when he saw me walking toward him. I did not tell him every one of those thoughts. I did not need to. I believed we were moving toward the same future. That was why the betrayal did more than break my heart. It destroyed a life I had already begun to love. Chapter 3. One day, I received unexpected news from New York. A design I had submitted to a local competition had been chosen as the best entry. I was invited to attend an awards ceremony. For a moment, the part of me that had once dreamed of a fashion career in New York came alive again. I loved my boutique, but the invitation reminded me that the life I had left behind had not completely forgotten me. The trip was supposed to last 5 days. I went to New York excited and proud. Nathan knew where I was. Rory knew too. There was no reason for either of them to expect me home early. Then my mother called and told me my father had gotten worse. Nothing else mattered after that. I packed in a hurry and arranged to return home immediately. My thoughts were with my father and my mother. I was worried, frightened, and angry at myself for being far away when they needed me. I planned to call Nathan from the taxi. Only after I got inside did I realize my phone had died and I had left my charger at the hotel. I searched the airport for a place to buy another one, but I could not find what I needed. The entire trip home, my phone remained dark and useless. I called my mother from a public phone. She told me she was at the hospital, so I went there directly. Someone at the hospital found a charger for me. While I visited my father, I left my phone charging at the nurse's station. By the time I picked it up, it had enough power for a few calls. I called Nathan. He did not answer. Then I called Rory. She did not answer either. It was only 9 in the evening. I noticed the coincidence, but I did not understand it. My mind was still focused on my father. I was tired from the rushed travel and emotionally drained from seeing him in the hospital. My mother agreed to take my luggage home, and I decided to go to Nathan's apartment. I missed him. Even after everything that had happened that day, the thought of seeing him brought me comfort. I imagined his surprise when I walked in. I imagined him holding me, asking about my father, and telling me I should have found some way to let him know I was coming. I already had a key to his apartment, even though we did not live together. That key had always felt like a sign of trust. That night, it opened the door to the truth. Chapter 4. Heavy metal was playing loudly inside Nathan's apartment. I entered quietly, though I doubt anyone could have heard the door over the music. The living room was a mess. Beer bottles covered the area around the couch. An empty whiskey bottle sat among them. Then I saw a shirt lying over the back of the couch. It belonged to Rory. I stopped. For a second, my mind refused to connect the facts. Rory worked with Nathan. She was our friend. There could be an explanation for her shirt being there. I wanted there to be an explanation so badly that I almost accepted the first impossible excuse my mind offered. Then I heard sounds coming from the bedroom. My body understood before my heart did. I walked toward the room, each step slower than the one before it. Something inside me was already begging me not to look. I felt as though I were approaching the edge of a cliff, knowing that one more step would change everything. I reached the bedroom. Nathan and Rory were in the bed together. They were having sex. For one suspended moment, no one moved. The music continued in the other room. The room looked real. Their bodies looked real. Rory's clothes on the floor looked real. But I felt as though I had left my own body. I could see them, yet I could not accept that the two people in front of me were the people I loved and trusted. Nathan saw me first. Tessa. He pushed Rory away from him and tried to cover himself. What are you doing here? He asked. The question cut through the numbness. What was I doing there? I had come because my father was sick. I had come because I missed my boyfriend. I had come because I believed his apartment was a safe place where I could fall apart for a few minutes. I came back early, I said. My voice sounded strange to me, too calm, too controlled. I decided to come straight here. I missed you. Rory gave a poisonous little laugh. And as usual, you ruined all the fun. I looked at her. As usual. The words barely came out. She rose from the bed without shame. You think this is the first time? She asked. I felt something tear inside me. Until that moment, one desperate part of me had still been trying to believe I had walked in on a single terrible mistake. Maybe alcohol had been involved. Maybe it had happened once. Maybe there was some version of reality in which the life I knew had not been a complete lie. Rory destroyed that hope with one sentence. She looked almost pleased. Do you really think a princess like you can satisfy a rough mechanic? She asked. Nathan likes things rough sometimes. He likes strong language. He likes a woman who gives it back to him. Shut up, Nathan shouted. Rory turned her eyes to me and smirked. See, he likes it rough. I stared at her. This was the girl who had sat beside me in school. The girl I had called whenever I wanted to go somewhere. The girl I had questioned before I ever agreed to date Nathan. She had looked me in the eyes and told me she did not want him. Now she was standing in his bedroom, enjoying my humiliation. Her expression hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. She was not sorry. She was not frightened of losing me. She looked triumphant, as if my pain proved she had finally beaten me in a contest I had never known we were having. Then I looked at Nathan. I remembered every conversation about our future, our sons, our daughter, the family business, the little princess he said he wanted to spoil. He had spoken about those things with such seriousness that I had allowed myself to believe they were promises. Now those promises felt filthy. The pain in my chest became so intense that I almost wondered if something was physically wrong with me. It was not a sharp pain. It was deeper, spreading through me like cold water. It felt like the moment love dies while you are still standing there, forced to watch it happen. Her cruelty hurt even more because I remembered every time I had asked whether she wanted Nathan. She had looked me in the eye and said no. She had reassured me, stayed close to us, and watched me fall in love with him while hiding the truth. Well, I said quietly. Then the two of you should stay together. I turned to leave. Chapter 5. Nathan caught up with me before I reached the door. He had pulled on his pants. He wrapped his arms around me and tried to hold me in place while he began speaking over himself, searching for some explanation that could erase what I had seen. I fought to get away from him. I told him not to touch me. His arms, which had once made me feel protected, now made my skin crawl. He smelled like alcohol and Rory. The closeness felt unbearable. I wanted distance from him, from the apartment, from the bedroom, and from the version of myself who had trusted him. The harder I tried to pull away, the more tightly he held me. Rory kept talking from the bedroom, throwing cruel remarks at us. She said I was just a princess who made Nathan feel important. She said he did not really love me. Nathan shouted at her to shut up and leave. But I was the one who left. I cut off all contact. Nathan waited outside my parents' house. He waited near my boutique. He sent flowers. He tried to speak to my mother. My mother told him she could not control me. Then she told him that even if she could, she would not try to convince me to return to him. To her, cheating was the end of everything. I agreed. It was not because I had suddenly stopped loving Nathan. That would have been easier. I still loved the man I thought he was. I still remembered the way he had looked at me, the future we had discussed, and the confidence I had felt when I believed he had chosen me. That love became its own kind of torture. Every good memory now carried another image behind it, Nathan in bed with Rory. I wondered how many times they had lied to me. How many times had Rory joined us for dinner after being with him? How many times had Nathan kissed me while knowing he had betrayed me? How many conversations had they had at work while I stood in my boutique helping other women prepare for honest promises? I did not know. I did not want to know. Nathan blamed the alcohol. I asked him a simple question. It wasn't the first time. It wasn't only once. Were you drunk every time? He had no answer. His silence told me more than any confession could have. Then he changed his explanation. He told me I was a princess, and that sometimes he wanted something more animal, more aggressive. He said he had not wanted to dirty me with that side of himself, so he had used Rory because she was willing. For a moment, I could only stare at him. He was trying to present his betrayal as if it had somehow protected me. He wanted me to believe he had cheated, because I was too special to be treated the way he wanted to treat a woman in bed. His words were not an apology. They were an insult disguised as one. He had divided women into two kinds, the woman he claimed to love and the woman he believed he could use. He had betrayed me, degraded Rory, and still expected me to see love somewhere inside his explanation. If that is what you want, I told him, then you and Rory can continue. Just do it without me. But I love you, he said. I looked at him carefully. I wanted to understand whether he believed his own words. Maybe he did. Maybe Nathan truly thought love was something he could separate from loyalty, respect, and honesty. Maybe he thought loving me meant wanting me in his future, even while he did whatever he wanted in the present. I don't think you understand what that word means, I said. That was the last real conversation we had. Eventually, Nathan understood that I was not coming back. Rory tried to speak to me too, but it was too late. I had lost my boyfriend and my oldest friend at the same time. There were days when the double betrayal felt so heavy that I could barely breathe through it. I would wake up and remember everything before I even opened my eyes. For a few seconds, I would feel normal. Then the bedroom, the bottles, Rory's smile, and Nathan's excuses would return. I wanted to collapse. But my father was still ill. My mother still needed help. The boutique still had brides waiting for fittings, alterations, and reassurance. I could not allow myself to disappear into grief. So I kept moving. I worked. I helped my parents. I smiled at customers. I stood behind women as they looked at themselves in white dresses and imagined a faithful future. Sometimes it hurt more than I could explain. But slowly, the pain stopped controlling every hour of my day. Chapter 6. About 8 months after the night that changed my life, a dark-haired man in his mid-30s walked into my boutique with a young blonde woman. At first, I assumed they were the bride and groom. They were not. The woman's name was Tally, and the man was her brother, Daniel. Tally was quiet and modest. I liked her immediately. She was preparing to marry a red-haired man named Jamie, and Daniel came with her to every fitting. He worked for a financial company. After their parents died, he had become Tally's only living relative. There was something moving about the way he stayed involved in her wedding preparations. He did not act as if the fittings were a burden. He came because she mattered to him. At first, Daniel and I simply talked during the appointments. Then he invited me to have coffee with him. I said yes. Starting another relationship frightened me more than I wanted to admit. Nathan's betrayal had changed the way I understood trust. Before him, I had believed trust was the natural foundation of love. After him, trust felt like a dangerous decision. I noticed everything. I listened closely to Daniel's words and wondered whether they matched the truth. When he was kind, part of me waited for the kindness to become a performance. When I began to enjoy being with him, fear followed close behind. I hated that Nathan and Rory still had that power over me. They were gone from my life, yet the damage they had caused entered every new moment. I did not want Daniel to pay for what another man had done, but I also did not know how to become the woman who had once trusted so easily. Daniel did not force anything. We began seeing each other more often. He met my parents. I met Jamie, the man Tally planned to marry. The people in our lives began to know one another. Little by little, being with Daniel stopped feeling frightening. I did not forget Nathan. I did not erase the past. I simply began to understand that one man's betrayal did not define every man. Eventually, I spent the night at Daniel's home. Later, I moved in with him. There was no dramatic moment when I suddenly realized I was healed. It happened in smaller ways. I stopped wondering whether every unanswered call meant a secret. I stopped comparing every sentence to something Nathan had once said. I stopped expecting happiness to be followed immediately by humiliation. Daniel's love did not feel like a promise I had to chase. It felt steady. After Tally and Jamie's wedding, Daniel and I returned home together. He quietly said that he liked weddings. I wouldn't mind having another one, he said. Then he got down on one knee and took a ring box from his pocket. Will you marry me? I said yes immediately. The answer came from a place inside me that no longer felt afraid. Chapter 7. Daniel and I married 6 months later. For years, I had helped other women prepare for their wedding days. I had seen their excitement, their nerves, their mothers' tears, and the way their faces changed when the dress finally felt right. Now it was my turn. My parents were there. Tally stood beside me as a bridesmaid, no longer only Daniel's younger sister, but someone who had become a younger sister to me as well. Jamie was part of our family. The people around me were connected not by old habit or false loyalty, but by real love. At some point during the celebration, there was a disturbance near the gates of the estate. I did not see it happen. Later, Tally told me that a drunk man had tried to force his way inside. He wanted to interrupt the wedding, but security removed him before he could reach us. When she described him, I understood who it was. Nathan. The man who had once planned sons and a daughter with me had come to stop me from marrying someone else. Once, the idea of Nathan watching me walk toward another man might have filled me with grief. Once, I might have wondered whether his desperation proved that he truly loved me. But standing there as Daniel's wife, I understood something clearly. Regret is not the same as love. Wanting someone back does not erase what you did when you had them. Nathan had not lost me on my wedding day. He had lost me in his bedroom, the moment I saw him with Rory. He had lost me again when he blamed alcohol. And he had lost the last possibility of forgiveness when he told me he had cheated because I was too much of a princess for the things he wanted. By the time he came to the gates of my wedding, there was nothing left for him to stop. My heart was no longer waiting for him. I did not ask security to let him in. I did not go outside. I did not need one final conversation. I stayed with my husband.